New construction sixplexes in Windsor, Ontario, tiny house communities, the status of real estate investing in Canada, solving for happy Airbnb investing, USA versus Canada, Airbnb investing, that is. Where is better? My show guest and I disagree. I'll let you, my 17 listeners, decide which is better. All this and more on the Truth About Real Estate Investing for Canadians show. What once was ranked number 81 on all of iTunes in the business category, but much has changed. Real estate investing in Canada and probably North America as well has really fallen out of favor. I see it at my work. I see it on my own listings, on social media. All the condo bulls have gone really quiet, or they've pivoted to coaching. I still spend too much time on social media, and I feel so bad for those agents that I see who are paying for paid advertising, and they're promoting new construction condos, like brand new, like as in like brand new, just like the old days. While there are nearly 10,000 condos available that are listed right now, according to Jim Pasalis of Move Smartly. I actually have a chart of it in the show notes. And that's just what's listed on Realtor.ca MLS. And that doesn't even include all the assignment deals that are done off market. Condo market investors are rushing for the exits. Unfortunately, if you bought a small condo, there's a lot of competition for them and not many tenants or buyers for such. Uh, and then on the other flip side, a friend of mine, he has a one plus den that he moved out of, and however, he immediately rented it. There was big demand for it, rented it immediately as soon as he listed it, got a great tenant, and he had three offers immediately to purchase it. So it's again, real estate markets are different depending on what you're talking about. The One Plus apparently in downtown Toronto is still quite hot. One bedrooms and bachelors and micro condos, not so much. I'm not a condo investor, but I've known for well over a decade that if you're going to buy one, uh, the One Plus Den condo is the poor person's two bedroom or the rich person's two bedroom. You know what I mean. So if you're going to invest in one, make sure it's a plus den. Even in the middle of condo winter, the best practice is still working. Housing inflation continues, at least in my own portfolio. My house insurance on my remaining properties in my Hamilton portfolio, they each went up $500 to $700 per year. That's just insurance. I'm gonna need an insurance review. I'm not looking forward to the rental licensing that's supposed to roll out to the rest of the city as well, which will add another $600 to $700 for each of my properties, and that's before the couple thousands of dollars to get rental licensing set up. Our property tax is only going up 5.8%. But when I read into the article, this is specific to Hamilton. I know a lot of other places in the GTA are getting it much worse. But when I read into the article, why it's only 5.8%, it's because the city of Hamilton is deferring a bunch of stuff. So they're literally just kicking the can down the road to be dealt with in the future. So we're just delaying. This is why when a Canadian not from Alberta is pitching me a deal, I ask them, is your projected cash flow, does it improve over time or does it get worse? Because between rent control and inflation, it can only go one direction. But bless those who continue to create housing supply. I have an idea of how difficult it is. Honestly, there's people losing their shirts right now. Small, medium-sized builders are going under. It's really sad stuff. And sadly, we need more people to develop property in Canada. I'm not willing to do it personally. It's the only way we see prices come down. And again, I think these people are saints to do so because they just take on so much risk to do so. Uh, Now, I just returned back from Windsor, Ontario. I was there while I was there, the sale of my daughter's house finalized. It closed. Yay. Lena Simsick and her business partner Brandon Finn were kind enough to host me as their speaker at their Windsor REI social event. It's a pretty sweet event. For only $20 admission, you get stone oven pizza dinner. And you get to network and hang with other like-minded real estate investors. There's a ton of leftovers because funny enough, Lena doesn't eat. I believe she avoids what is it? Not celiac, but gluten. I believe she needs to be gluten free, and I have to avoid dairy, so neither of us eat pizza. And at the Windsor REI Social, for the first time ever, I gave a presentation with no PowerPoint slides. I only had a whiteboard that I borrowed from my office, and I drew a T chart. Canada on one side, USA on the other. And the categories were things like mortgages, landlord rights, cash flow. The feedback was excellent. Uh, Thank you to everyone that showed up and who came by to say hi, Cody, Luis, Kyle, Matt, Kevin, Jonathan, Savio, and Mike Seal. Thank you again to Milena and Brandon for hosting me. If you have not listened to my episode with interviewing Milena Simasik, I highly recommend that you do. I included a link in the show notes. It's really just, I think, just go back 2 or 3 episodes from this current one. We really dug into her story and journey. If you want to be young and successful, she's pretty much laid out how she did so on the show. Now, skipping ahead, a book that I just finished is called Solving for Happy by Mo Gaudet. So he was a super engineer for one of the highest level engineers that ever came out of Google. Anyways, I can't recommend it enough, though I highly recommend it to parents, though I do have the caution. I did the audiobook. I'm a big audiobook fan. The author, Mo, he reads the audiobook himself. And it's tough. It's a tough book in that Mo wrote the book about 17 weeks after the passing of his son via accidental death, a surgery gone wrong. There's a minor surgery as well. Anytime Mo talks about the death of Ali, he gets choked up. And then coincidentally, someone decides to cut onions wherever I happen to be when it happens. Some nuggets that I took away from the book is accepting death. No amount of money will ever make you happy. Do more of what makes you happy. Recognize what doesn't make you happy and do less of it. In the absence of evidence, in the absence of evidence-based decision making, choose happiness. I can't tell you. And then from what I just told you, I'm quite happy to have divested some of my Ontario properties. I don't can't really say I enjoy being an Ontario landlord. And I can't tell you how much my current work makes me happy as I'm enjoying educating and sharing with Canadians how much better it is to be a USA landlord and versus here locally. And I get paid and have equity share in this company called Share that I keep talking about. Which reminds me, I am hosting a free virtual tour of USA income properties, including the one I've conditionally purchased in Kansas City, Missouri, a 1,200 square foot, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath off-market deal. I know I'm a realtor, but it's nice to do off-market deals. This one's coming through an institutional size wholesaler. This is a BRRRR. This is a buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat deal. BRRRR. Got it tied up for just under 160. Renovations about 25,000. I'm just still waiting for the quote. The equity uplift will be hopefully $10,000. The monthly rent for $1,495. And then after all expenses, this works out to be a 5.9 capitalization rate, cap rate for short. And for those who don't know, cap rate, this is operating profit yield before financing costs. Cap rate is a must know for all sophisticated investors. So if you don't know what that means, please Google it. I've got a link to the show notes to Investopedia to explain it. All sophisticated investors and professionals know what cap rate is, and they've looked at many enough of them to know what when expenses are missing or when revenues are overinflated. So make sure you're familiar with this stuff. Again, I have a link to Investopedia in the show notes. On to this week's show. All right, yeah. So I'll have a link. There'll be a link in the show notes as well for where to get a link to that free virtual tour. We already have I think 120 people signed up. So these things are very popular. On to this week's show. As always, we try to focus on cash flow. And this young, lovely couple, Spencer and Ashley, they're our guests today. They're from Niagara. They are based in Niagara. They're real estate investors with a shared love of travel. They are literally vacationing in Nashville, Tennessee right now as I record this. I follow them on Instagram, Spencer and Ashley. Hopefully they find an Airbnb investment there as Nashville is awesome. They're big into fitness and dogs as well. They started investing in 2018 and have since expanded their portfolio of 13 units with a mix of short-term and long-term rentals. Spencer and Ashley co-founded Travelluxe Inc. in 2019, a short-term rental management company, which currently manages over 45 units across both Canada and they have expanded to the USA. We go into detail into their favorite deals, what they each think which should be the next investment that they would make personally, or what they think is the best practice investment for any investor. And it's actually funny. I disagree with my. They don't. We all. So Spencer and Ashley have different ideas on what they think is the next best ideal property. And then I disagree on which market is better as well. Anyways, this course is good. We all get along, and it's good to challenge each other's theories. And yeah, again, discourse is good. Sadly, we've gotten away from that a lot. A lot more. There's so much bipartisanism and arguing. Like here, we're just trying to grow. We're all trying to grow and be friends here. So friendly discourse is lovely, I think. Anyways, they were able to leave their corporate jobs in 2021 and 2022 to focus all their efforts on their businesses. Their love for travel has brought them all around the world. Literally, they're in Nashville right now. They spent a lot of time in Croatia last year. Anyways, they're they love being able to mix their work and pleasure by creating systems that allow them to be location independent. All right. If you want to follow them, you can find them on Instagram, Spencer and Ashley. So it's Spencer and Ashley, no spaces. If you search them, you'll find for them. It's the same website, spencerandashley.com. And I've got a link to the Ellicottville Airbnb that they own with their friend John Schwenker. So there's again the links in the show notes. I recommend you have a look because it's totally stands out, which explains why they're able to generate six figures on so many of their rental properties that they manage. All right, please enjoy the show.
Hi, Spencer, Ashley. What's keeping you busy these days?
All things real estate, all things short-term rental, points and miles. We're kind of into everything.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Where to start? Okay, yeah. So first of all, tell us how you got into this. Because you didn't like, you guys are not straight out of high school. You guys had previous careers to this?
Yeah. So Ash and I both had corporate jobs. I worked for Fortune 500 company out of Toronto in the CPG industry. I was
consumer products.
Yeah. Sorry, thanks. I was a sales role there. Like really good job. Like I was working remotely, which was awesome. Company car, good money, and I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do full time. And Ashley and I were both kind of on the same page there in the corporate roles. We both love to travel, so only having 3 to 4 weeks vacation was a big hindrance for us. We definitely took advantage of that vacation time, but it just made us realize we wanted something else. We both come from a competitive sports background, so we've always wanted to push for more, and we saw the window of opportunity with real estate and just kind of learned as much as we could, dove in, and then haven't looked back since.
Ashley, you had a previous career?
Yeah, I was HR generalist for a small company out of Niagara.
Interesting. Very different roles.
Yes. And I feel like I had a career there, but like Spencer said, it wasn't like I hated my job and I needed to leave. It was more like I hated being confined to, I have to be at a desk between 9 and 5. I have to work Monday to Friday. You only get 3 weeks vacation. And I just really couldn't understand how people didn't want to enjoy their life before like 65. Yeah.
We can talk about that for all day.
Yeah.
So that actually explains a lot, because so the little I know about you, like Spencer, you focus more on business development, revenue generation side, and actually you're more like the back office, the operations side. And actually that's a great thing to bring up, is there's a lot of individual founders, and then there's all this, like, I don't know what it is, but people think they have to do things on their own. And it's like, I always remember watching The First Apprentice with Donald Trump. This is before he ran for president, and half the world hated him. But anyways, if anyone else watched that, did you guys watch The First Apprentice?
I've watched The Apprentice. I couldn't tell you if it was the first one or not, but I definitely remember going back and watching that back in the day.
One of my takeaways was, like, these were almost everyone on the show was brilliant. The one who won was the only well-rounded person on the show who could cover both like biz dev and operations. Everyone else was more of a specialist in something else, right? Like the runner-up was a hardcore salesperson for one of the like printer photocopying companies. Brilliant salesperson, but like managing a team, couldn't do it, and then everyone else behind that, again, they just didn't have the skill set. Versus you have complementing skill sets. And if I probably follow all the gossip too much, but a lot of people who were really strong in one thing, they kind of neglected the other half. Usually they're great at raising capital and finding deals, not so great at the execution. And then I think you know what happens if you're not great at the execution. What happens to your business?
Exactly. It goes nowhere.
Right? Like your reviews would go to crap.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Right? And then that would hurt your top line.
That's
We
it.
wouldn't even have clients.
Yeah. Absolutely. I find that, there's definitely things that, I like to be the more big picture, kind of bring things in, and Ashley kind of reels in and is more like the realist, like, hey, did you factor this in? We need to consider, X, Y, and Z, and it really, really complements, brings it down to earth a little bit and keeps things realistic. But between the two, you find like a happy medium, and usually it helps push things across the finish line.
And my school background is actually psychology, and I've always found it super fascinating, like what motivates you versus me or other people. And we've actually done like little psychological assessments back when I had those resources when I was in like an HR role before. And there are a lot of things that him and I are very similar on, which is why we have similar dreams and passions and goals. But there are things that we're very different on. So we've been able to see, okay, like we're both great at starting projects. We both suck at finishing them because about halfway through, we're like, ooh, new and shiny over there. And we get really excited, which I think is very typical of entrepreneurs. So we have other people in place that we know are really great at getting us to circle back, be like, hey, coming back to that, let's close the loop on that. So I don't think that it's necessary for us both to be super well-rounded in everything, because then we won't be great at anything. We're just good at everything, right? Yeah. But to be like great at your thing and then surround yourself with people who are better at the things that you suck at, I think really makes for like a winning team.
So hopefully we haven't confused the listener. So let's explain to the listener, what does you guys do? How do you explain what you do?
So we're in the vacation rental industry. So we started off by purchasing our own properties, and we put them on platforms like Airbnb. And we saw that there was definitely a demand for it from an investor's perspective. We saw that, we were doing a decent job at the operations side. Like we had the team, the knowledge, the expertise. And we decided, hey, we can do this for other people. So we founded Travelluxe, which is a vacation rental management company, back in 2019, I believe. And we started onboarding our clients from there and just expanded it to now over 44, 45 properties across Canada. And they're more like the medium high to higher end properties, like single detached luxury vacation homes with hot tub saunas, waterfront, that type of thing. So we've really branded to more the luxury side of things and are trying to attract specific type of guest avatar. And at the end of the day, like, our goal is the same as the owner's goal. Is like we want to try to bring in as much income and revenue while at the same time providing a fantastic experience for all these guests coming in and supporting the local tourism, so on and so forth. So that's our bread and butter. That's the industry that we're in there.
So so specifically Ontario, what markets do you like?
So we started off in the Niagara region, so St. Catharines, Niagara, and the Lake. We're out in Hamilton, that area right now, but we've just recently expanded quite heavily into the Kawartha Lakes area. I believe we have 10 properties there and a few more going live, mostly waterfront, nice cottages. It's definitely a up-and-coming, pretty popular destination for travelers, less traffic.
Getting into more of the Norfolk and Haldimand counties as well. Just go the other way in Niagara. There's still waterfront, but you don't get that drive, that post-Toronto drive.
That 400 highway.
Yes, exactly. So I feel like we're that area, the like Port Stanley, Port Dover, all those areas, they're becoming a little more up and coming. They're not all like luxury right now, but I think like upcoming people are going to be buying more of the luxury brands, and we're seeing that portfolio starting to take off too. Yeah,
and we do have coverage in like the GTA and British Columbia as well. We're out there. There was some pretty heavy rules that came down in BC. Still able to operate out there. I know a lot of the news articles scared a lot of people away, saying that you weren't allowed to operate. There's ways that you still can and get a license for it. But yeah, our major markets there. And then we've purchased 2 of our own just across the border in upstate New York as well.
Oh boy, another mouthful. Where do we start? What is it? What is the commonality between these markets that you like? Yeah.
Tourism. Tourism will always be needed. People are going to this area, whether it's just for like a vacation or just like heavy tourism. Niagara on the Lake will always need short-term rentals. It's unlikely that they will ever ban them, just because they need tourism in that area, and they don't have any hotels or any big hotels due to their building regulations. So they need short-term rentals.
Yeah, and we're not the like our property portfolio isn't like the apartment building that's necessarily catering to people that are coming there for work purposes or longer extended stays. We're more like experience focused. So that's why we love pro tourism markets, just because again that's who we're really trying to attract. Not that we don't get people that come for extended stays. We still try to capture that, especially in our slow seasons, but we're very bullish on markets that are pro tourism.
And now paint us a picture, like, what does the house look like? Is it modern? Is it rustic? Is it, you mentioned
depends.
Waterfront. You imagine you have like a checklist. You have to hit a certain number of checks in order to make this fit work.
Yeah. So I think it depends on where it is and what our guest avatar is. So part of our process, especially when acquiring and purchasing on our own, is looking at the area and looking at who is coming to this area that we want to appeal to. So for instance, we have a couple properties in Niagara on the Lake. Who's coming to Niagara on the Lake? So it's typically groups of girls, couples, a lot of older couples, families. Those are kind of like our avatar that we're going towards. So when we're looking at a house, we're not necessarily looking for what is the most modern house, because when you come to Niagara on the Lake, you're thinking vineyard, charm, old like farmhousey kind of vibes. So it's okay to have something that's not super modern, but then to have modern amenities that people might like. So it could be like hot tub saunas for those groups of adults, but then we also have like foosball tables and tire swings and kids games and books and stuff for the kids. So we're trying to appeal to those types of avatars. And you really can't put a price on someone being able to wake up, walk outside, and look at something that they don't have back home. So like vineyards, water, that kind of thing. And that's what we're looking for.
Right. And then do you have like a sweet spot for like bedrooms and bathrooms or square footage or anything like that?
Yeah, usually minimum 3 bedrooms. Obviously, more heads to beds in larger groups is definitely, there's less competition there. Obviously, you know, you're competing with less amount of people searching, but I mean, we have a few 5 and 6 bedrooms that do extremely well just because there aren't a ton of properties like that. And obviously, when you're getting to a size of a house where you can now house 2 families comfortably, you can charge a lot more money because it's a lot more economical for them to say, hey, we're splitting this up between 12 people or 10 people. So we find like that sweet spot between like 10 and 14 guests are pretty good from an overall profit maximization standpoint. We don't really see much more value like after that 14, at least in our markets right now, but there are some other markets where there's 16 plus people, and you know, a lot of them can bring in the wrong type of guest if you're not pricing accordingly, but they do well as well.
But something really important to think of too is a lot of bylaws might limit the amount of bedrooms that you are allowed to have for a short-term rental license, and Niagara on the Lake does that. You can only have a 3-bedroom house for a short-term rental license. Like you can have pillow couches in living rooms and such, or in like a basement, but it can't be deemed a bedroom. So knowing bylaws before you even look at purchasing is going to be like your number one step.
Interesting. Other than my own family's use of Airbnbs, I'm doing a lot of like mastermind retreats. So we're all like middle-aged men and women, and we're at a point in our life we all want our own bedroom, and it's not going to be a pull-out couch. I was actually wondering about that business model. Like for example, in Austin, we rented a house with 8 bedrooms, but so that house is not cheap, and not a lot of people want a house with 8 bedrooms, and I was wondering if like that's actually a model.
I mean, it definitely is. We've had in our larger homes, we've had like corporate executive retreats that have like 5-6 bedrooms where they're bringing in like, and everyone wants their own bedroom, but they're willing to pay because it's a corporate expense. And these are like really probably our highest end properties, like really, really nice amenities, those types of things. I mean, in the Niagara market, I wouldn't say like it's as popular, but it's there. But definitely in like certain markets, I think could be very, very popular for that, especially if they're getting a lot of people coming in for business and so on and so forth.
The last one we stayed at was they even had a basketball court that doubled as a tennis court, pool and hot tub. I don't even know how big the property was. Probably about at least 3 acres.
Wow.
Yeah, and they had a lot of bedrooms.
Wow.
And almost every bedroom had an ensuite with the separate tub.
Wow.
There is a market for that, and like thinking about like the type of asset that they're purchasing, it's like there's a good chance that they're still making really good money on it. But even then, it's like they're getting debt pay down on a massive asset that otherwise would be very difficult to rent, right? From like a long-term perspective. So there definitely is a market for that.
They had a pile of white folding chairs in the garage. So I'm gonna bet money that they host weddings there.
Yeah. If they're allowed to, that's a great thing to double down on as well. We'd love to be able to do that in Niagara on the Lake, just because we do have property with acreage, and unfortunately you have to get like a special license for it, just because there's the wineries and stuff there that are set up for it. So it's a little bit, you can't unfortunately do it unless it's like your own family and you have permission and so on and so forth. But that would be an amazing opportunity if we could.
I had a friend who used to rent her each chair for $35.
Wow. Yeah, see, there you go. Like, that's the thing with Niagara. Like, there's not a lot of venues that are available because they get snatched up so quickly. So, like, that industry is booming because it's a beautiful area. There's lots of vineyards, but there isn't. We get a ton of people ask at our properties if they could do a wedding there. And as much as we'd love to say yes, because the income that it could bring in, we know we could do it. We don't want to be in the city's bad books.
It's so interesting because I think people need to appreciate it. Every market is different. Yes. Like incredibly different. And like their season and your customer, your client avatar is different, right? So I actually asked you guys when we were golfing the other day, what was if you were to buy your next property, where would it be? And you had completely different answers, which I thought was fascinating.
Oh, what did you say?
The States.
So you see how
I do still like Niagara on the Lake though, but if I had to choose, for me it would be, I love just the ability, flexibility of the States, like 30-year true fixed mortgage. I mean, not so much beneficial now, but when we bought, it's predictability, right? It's great. And, certain states are a lot more, if you're looking at just long-term in general, like long-term rent, they're a lot more favorable of the landlords and business in general. So again, just from an overall scale perspective, I would say the States, but I still do love Niagara on the Lake.
I think I chose Niagara on the Lake more for its predictability. I know that market. I know the returns because we see it. We're in it every single day. So I know for a fact if you showed me a property with a purchase price and the amenities you were going to put into it, we could confidently say what you would make gross and that it would likely work out. Ellicottville, we love. We have a couple properties there in upstate New York. Also do well. Obviously, it's very favorable to be in the States, but there's other markets that we think would do well, but we don't know 100% for real life experience,
Okay, so we had John Schwenker on the show recently, and I already know these are incredibly different price points.
Yes.
They're not even close, not even the same. Like there's an extra zero involved. So Ashley, can you paint us a picture of what a Niagara Falls property, like tell us what you want in it?
So Niagara on the Lake, definitely you're looking at vineyards. You probably want some sort of land. So giving it more of like a farmhousey kind of feel, that quaint escape where you're kind of in nature. So you're looking at acreage. So the price point's going to be definitely over $1 million. Yeah. On that, and then you want to add
just
all
over
$1
million,
things.
or are we talking like 1.5 or 1.8?
No, I mean, especially now, I'm sure like you can probably pick up some pretty good deals because there's quite a few for sale that have acreage that are in and around the $1 million price point, and that's like list. So I would assume if you wanted to get bullish and throw in some bully offers, you might be able to scoop something up. Like the two we got were just over $1 million. One was like $1,005,000. The other one was $1,070,000. Right. I think so.
Because days on market are creeping up there.
I mean, it was booming at the time, but it's definitely flattened off, and I would say like decreased a little bit just because things aren't moving in Niagara, unless it's like a really, really low sale. Like I said, it's a good time if you're looking at it to get in if you're able to withstand the high rates for now.
And then And then what's the business like? What like was there a seasonality to it? Like, is it mostly a summer thing? Is there a winter business? What
Yeah,
is it?
so like we say like May 24 is like the opening date of that, although May 24 is not that busy historically just because the weather's so hot and cold and cottage country is more popular. But once you get into where we are now in June, you're starting to see a lot higher revenue coming in. July and August are by far your two highest months, and then September is a close second.
Depending on weather.
Yeah, depending on weather. October there, you get, again, probably about 60% of what July and August gets because it's the fall, the leaves change, it's beautiful, and in the winery areas it's good. Then it really tapers off in November. You get a small spike in December for New Year's, Christmas, and then it gets really slow for about 3.5 months. This year we were lucky because we had the solar eclipse that came through, which there was a massive spike. I mean, if you were not ahead of your pricing, you left like probably close to $1,000 a night on the table for that one. But yeah, it was the best April we've had since we've been in the game for obvious reasons.
Right.
And then it's so there is a cycle. So that's why we want to set up our properties to be tailored to people that are coming there in the winter. That's why we love hot tubs, we love saunas. Like the outdoors is still beautiful in the wintertime when there's some snow coverage, and we saw like a big jump when we started adding those amenities in versus the properties that are beautiful inside, beautiful in the summer, but didn't necessarily have anything for the winter. Those ones suffered more. So like you could see that there was a lot more seasonality with them than there was for the properties that have those winter amenities.
Sounds like it's a good time to get into this market.
Yes.
Especially with climate change, everything's only getting warmer. So I would expect your rental seasons to expand.
Yeah, yeah. Like this past winter wasn't bad at all. I think we had like 2 or 3 bigger snowstorms. Like again, one of the biggest waste of money was snow removal that we spent on. That was like our biggest expense line that we didn't really see a ton of value on. You need to have it, but yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying like October is getting more popular. Even later in October, I think going back to 3 or 4 years ago, you would see it really taper off in the back half versus now. You're getting people that literally are saying we're coming because we want to be there when all the leaves are changing. We love the winery area during that time, and we've been able to inflate prices because of that.
And you're seeing more tourist flexibility ever since COVID, and a lot of people are working from home, so they can work from anywhere. So we're seeing a lot more like Sunday to Thursday bookings or like midweek bookings, whereas before Niagara on the Lake is predominantly a very weekend town, right? Like 3 or 4 day stays maybe. Now we're seeing a lot of weekday stays as well, and then even people coming down for just a change of scenery, even in the winter, because the prices are lower.
And we're all self-employed. I would go in near any of these places on the weekend.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sure the locals hate the weekends too. Actually, you guys are locals.
When friends come down, we take them out during the weekend just because that's when everything's live.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we go to Niagara on the Lake, it's the Tuesday or Wednesday when there's not too many people there.
So what kind of what's the revenue look like then? And then like what are all the other costs that are involved with operating $1 million winery, Airbnb?
Yeah, so in those properties which are...
Oh, sorry, I just clarified. Like you're near wineries. You're not... This isn't a winery.
No, not a winery, no. But they are walking distance to some wineries.
Perfect.
Yeah,
drink and drive.
Which
Perfect.
is great. Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, there's one that's right beside like a cidery and like probably a 3 or 4 minute walk from wineries. It's great. Like if you're in Niagara on the Lake, you're probably only going to be 2 to 5 minutes to some sort of winery. There's so many. That's the nice thing about it.
And it's a small area.
Yeah, but revenue, I mean, the 95th or the 90th percentile plus, you're seeing anywhere from 100 to 180,000 a year in terms of gross revenue. And then again, on like the 2 properties that we have in Niagara on the Lake, they did around, I think, 170 and 159, 158, and they both were in the profit range of around 50 to 40,000 take home in terms of that. Like, and that also included some additions that we've added to the property. Like we put a hot tub in one of them last year, so that includes the expenses of that. So, and they're on variable rate mortgages, which is crazy because they've gone up significantly since we purchased them, and they're still cash flowing quite positive, right? Which is what we like to see for that type of asset.
That's pretty bonkers. She's like, who cash flows in Ontario?
Yeah.
Who cash flows
But
in Canada?
it's a lot of work. Like,
It is.
This isn't a passive
Yeah, that's what
investment.
people pay you.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like, to get it to those kind of numbers, there's a significant investment. That's why we say,
Yes.
like, it's almost hard to stick to a budget when doing short-term rentals, because we know that if we go over 40 grand on certain amenities that we know drive revenue, that it's going to pay itself back. But it's not like the days of, hey, we're going to renovate it, we're going to refinance it and get all of our money out right away. This is more of like a 3 to 5 year plus play, where it's, I know that we're putting things in that our competition likely won't add, or they can't add right now, knowing that we are ahead of the curve and we're going to get that incremental revenue year over year to eventually turning it into a very positive investment. Right now, with interest rates and prices, I mean, even when you're running the numbers, there's still a lot of positive cash flow deals, but the cash on cash might not look as strong, just because you're not just renovating it and getting a tenant in there that's going to furnish it. Now you're furnishing this entire property. We're big on outdoor amenities, so like for us, we'd rather spend more money on the outside than inside, believe it or not, because you want to make sure you're capturing top revenue in the season, which is, your July, August, September's. So there is that kind of push-pull of like, okay, like when I'm running the cash on cash, it doesn't look great and it might scare a lot of people away, but we know in 3 to 5 years it pays itself back tenfold.
Yeah, I imagine the appreciation will be pretty nice in 3 to 5 years as well.
But you have to think too that your competition is always bettering themselves. So if you could have the best house, but if you make no changes year over year, your revenue will not increase the way that your competitions are, and soon you won't be the top of the top anymore.
Right.
So we know that every single year we allocate a lot of that net profit to go back into the property to keep it new and great, right? Like, you have to put in all the new stuff and refresh things. Like, guests are hard on a lot of the items that are in there, so they have to stay looking new.
Right. And then a lot of things economically are in your favor. Like, our dollar is suffering and expected to continue to suffer. You already mentioned you're getting quite a bit of American customers.
Tons of Americans, yeah. Tons.
And also Kawartha too, other than Niagara, or?
No, I mean,
Not as much.
not
in
as much in the
Kawarthas.
Kawarthas. Tons in Niagara. Like, a lot of people come over, usually multiple families. Like, again, we probably see the majority of, family with 2 or 3 kids, or like 2 smaller families with 1 or 2 kids. We get a lot of that because, again, their dollar goes a long way, and they love this area. And you'll get a lot of people that are from this area that now live in the States. They're coming back to visit family, and, they want to do the whole, they might be coming with friends that have never been there, do the whole Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake, maybe hit the Toronto up one day tour, and we definitely see a ton of that.
What a tale of two cities, Niagara Falls, New York versus Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Completely different worlds.
I
They
know.
I don't know much about that area, but they don't have wineries.
No, not. I mean, we don't really spend a lot of time over there. Good chicken wings, though. Really good chicken wings.
They have a casino.
Yes, yeah, they do.
The Buffalo Sabres don't play that far away from there.
No,
No.
yeah, that's honestly we'll go over to those games. Like, that's basically the only time we're in that area specifically. If not, it's Ellicottville.
Lovely segue. So John Schwenker loves his Ellicottville property. Tell us about Ellicottville. What is the attraction? I think most people from the GTA area know what it is, but yeah, please.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Not good.
It is a ski town. They have 2 ski hills. One's a private and one's a public one. So it's very popular because it's not that far from Niagara, even the GTA, to go over. It's typically not as busy as Blue Mountain. Not as big. It's like I see it as like it's a much smaller version. But they do have a very small strip with like a ton of restaurants, bars. In the summer, they've got some really nice patios there. There's a golf course in the summer, mountain biking trails. So, when we were first getting into it, we loved Collingwood because we had some investor friends that had properties there. They're a lot more strict on their regulations, but they have 3 seasons, right? They don't.
Very different price point too, though.
Very different price point. So,
sorry, let's get into what is the price point for Ellicottville?
Well, the one we got with John was like a steal. I think we paid $250,000 for it. It's a 1,300 or 1,400 square foot home, 3 bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, which is impressive. And it came with like a just under an acre, but it had like a fully detached garage that was fully serviced, like insulated, electrical. It had its own heat and cooling system in there, which we can get into what we did with that later to increase revenue. Then the other one was directly on the private ski hill. It's like a 3-minute walk to the chalet. And that one we paid $530 for. It was listed at $570. During the time here when it was going to bidding wars, we were able to get under asking there, because there was a lot of Canadians that owned in Ellicottville. Like, we bought this from a Canadian. The other one.
Man, you just made a bunch of money just on the exchange rate.
Yeah, well, and a lot of them, they were using it for personal use and they couldn't get down there, so they just said, you know what, screw this, we're going to sell it. And we
also bought it furnished.
Yeah, that was
fully furnished.
That was the other big thing.
Was it nice?
Yeah.
Fairly. Like, we made some updates, but like the couches, dining table, the bed frames, they're all beautiful. Like, great. The mattresses, like, it saved us a ton of money that we were able to just roll into the mortgage, which was great.
Yeah, because the vibes there are like more ski chalet. We weren't going for super modern type of thing. So a lot of wood, a lot of like open and like darker colors and stuff, and it really fit the vibe.
And then I know you like, I was gonna say pimped out, but I'll say pimped out. You pimped up that garage at that first Ellicottville property.
Yes, it's a games room now. Spencer and John spent a really long time painting it. It's like all different colors on the wall. I don't know if John went through it or not, but they spent like days painting this thing, but it looks awesome. We actually hired like a design company like for short-term rentals to go and design it for us and to source everything, and we just had to put it all together, but it has turned out so nicely.
What's in the games room? What makes it a games room?
So we put in a pool table.
Yeah.
It's got a TV with a little bar set up. It's got one of those arcade basketball things. So you can shoot the ball and it comes in and it keeps your score. It's got a Pac-Man machine, which we thought is really cool. It's a lot of fun in there. And then it's just got some really cool seating areas with like a feature wall and a neon sign. And it's a double door garage that can open up in the summer that, again, has nice views of like the, not the mountain, but the escarpment there. And it's just open aired in the summertime, but in the wintertime, like I said, it's fully heated in there and people can go in, watch. We put the Apollo TV, if anyone's heard of that. It's like the IPTV that gets every channel, every show, like literally everything. So, a lot of Americans are big on certain sports and like they love the UFC fights. So we wanted to put something in where they'd have access to that so they could have a different area to hang out in. And while their kids are playing, they can watch TV. And we got like little games and stuff in there, like the big Jenga and
popcorn.
Yeah, we have a popcorn maker in there as well. That's a big one. People love that. It's a hit. And yeah, we saw like a huge difference in return from previous year just by putting that in.
How much did it cost you to put this together?
Since we did a lot of the work ourselves, I think everything all in was around $8 US.
$8,000?
Yeah.
That's it?
Because the garage was already, like I was saying, it was sitting there for a year and a half with just a ton of boxes from when we furnished it and we locked it. That's where like the garbage and stuff went into. And then finally we were like, this is just untapped potential here from a income perspective. We finally said, you know what, the property's made money, let's invest back into it. And it was the best thing we've done at that property.
There was no renovations needed inside of it. Like, it was perfect inside.
Just paint and like the pool table and those other items we mentioned.
How much more do you think it generated more in rent?
So we're seeing like a $3,000 to $5,000 lift every single month. Where we've noticed,
my God,
yeah,
there's
pay
nothing
back
like
in
it.
less than 2 months.
It paid back like very quickly. Like, again, because this was a fairly new thing, we went live with it, I believe, in like November, December this past year. So we still compared, even though we had previous bookings for the high season before we uploaded pictures and were even advertising it, we still compared the numbers and saw a lift because people were booking more last minute because of it. But the biggest jump's been in the summer and slower seasons, because really there you're like November, even like beginning of December is not that busy because it's kind of that like gross gray, there's no snow but it's not warm enough to be outside temperature. And same thing with like the March, April. We saw a huge lift in those months and throughout the summer because no one else, there's like maybe one other property that kind of has a games room, but no one else in that market has anything like that. And we saw this as, this isn't going to cost us a ton of money to be able to provide something that majority of other people don't have. So it was a no-brainer for us.
That's pretty awesome. All right, let's go through top to bottom the numbers. So you bought it for $250.
Mm-hmm.
How much? What renovations, furnishing?
I want to say we put because again, that one also came furnished. They both did, which was great.
Not as
but
furnished.
not as furnished.
It was someone's vacation home.
Yeah, so it was I believe a family from Ohio that used it as like a vacation. I think they rented it out here and there, but again, same thing. COVID hit, and they just didn't want anything to do with it, even though they weren't that far of a drive away. So yeah, I mean, the furniture in there though wasn't like the best. We definitely kept the beds. The beds were good, but we ended up purchasing like new couch, new dining table. We decked out the outdoors on both of them. Like it had like interlock, really badly maintained patio at the back, so we kind of redid that, put in a gazebo, a hot tub, much nicer patio set with a gas fire table, good barbecue. So we understand the importance of having outdoor amenities, so we really went after that. I'd say we probably put like maybe not that much, like 30 into it when you count the hot tub and all the other stuff. 35 I believe is roughly where we landed.
US?
Yeah.
And that include the garage? The garage?
No, that was like at the start. So the garage was another 8, so we can go. Yeah, we can say we're probably 40 to 45.
And then
into that.
What are you expecting now for revenue?
We're hoping to hit 6 figures. Last year, I think we did 83, but that was before the garage, and I think we're projecting around 105 to 110. And yeah, we stole that property. Like I said, we got it at a 30-year fixed. I believe it's like 2.83 is our interest rate. So I think our covering costs on that place is around 22 to 2,300.
Usually the first booking of the month covers the covering expenses of the actual house, and then the rest goes towards like the cleaning, supplies, etc.
This sounds like a pretty sick deal.
It's probably our best cash on cash play.
And if you saw it,
nobody wants that. So.
Considering it was a turnkey. Considering it wasn't a burr play, it wasn't a value add. We knew there wasn't going to be much appreciation in this.
But if you saw it, you'd be like, that one's your best one. Like from the outside, it just kind of looks small. It was like an old schoolhouse,
right.
Small area just outside of Ellicottville. But because we got it at such a low price, because of the way the real estate is in the U.S. and what people are willing to pay to come to that area, it does really, really well.
Like you're talking about, like cost you like $300,000 to get into it. Mm-hmm. You're doing $80,000 to $100,000 in revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was scary at first because both of these properties, also we have to mention, we purchased them sight unseen. Like I was
gonna wonder. It's like, this is COVID. How'd you get over there?
Yeah, so we had a realtor there that did like video walkthroughs and stuff for us, which was really helpful.
Yeah.
And it was just like running numbers over and over again. And I was worried about that one specifically because in Ellicottville, it's such a small town that you want to be close to all the things. This one on Google Maps is only a 5-minute drive, but when you get out there and you start driving to the property, it feels like it's so far away because you go through town, you go down the one road, you go up for like a decent amount of time, then you turn left, and then you keep going, and it's like only 2 minutes, but it feels like half an hour. So we're like, oh no, what did we buy, right? Like we were nervous that it wasn't going to, because it was farther outside of town, that it wasn't going to do as well. But again, the fact that it is like not neck and neck with other properties, it has outdoor amenities, it's very like peaceful and tranquil out there because it does have like the 2 escarpments on both sides.
It's a big property too.
It is, yeah, just under an acre. Like it's it's been a hit for people that just again want to be only a 5-minute drive to the ski hills, but not so much. You're not walking to the restaurants and bars, that's for sure.
Crazy. I kind of sided with the Ellicottville property. I'm sorry, Ashley.
Yeah, I can see why.
Well, those aren't sitting around anymore.
Yeah.
Like, prices have gone up, and like people now that are listing they're listing way higher than what the actual value is. There isn't a ton of appreciation in Ellicottville, which we're fine with.
Right.
But it's just the supply. There's not a ton that go on the market that are like, yeah, that makes sense. Or if you go to put in an offer on it, that makes sense, and people don't need to sell. So it's a little bit tougher to get in.
Right. I'm sure you'll find someone motivated eventually. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those 30-year fixed, if they fixed them for like cheap. What did you get what is your mortgage?
2.83 on the one and 2.3 on the other.
What a joke.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
What a joke.
It's
I know.
it's I know. It's
And
not.
fixed for 30. So Canadians don't understand, like, it's not the amortize. Well, the amortization is 30 years.
Yes.
But your rate is also fixed for 30 years.
When you try to explain to an American the way it is
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
they are so confused. They're like, wait, so you have to like get a new mortgage every 5 years? I'm
Yeah.
like, basically, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
It's so
when we
bad.
were going, like we were closing on these properties, I asked the person that was doing our mortgage like 5 times, like, so after 5 years, it's still 2.83. He's like, yes. So in like 15 years, it still doesn't change. He's like, yeah. Like he was like looking at me like I had 3 heads. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, just think the other side. Somebody bought a bond, right?
Yeah.
Someone's willing to invest for 30 years for like under 2% yield. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, we're not complaining about that one. Yeah, we really like those.
And Warren Buffett talked about that in what, like, his investment theory is like, you know, you don't like today's rate, wait till it come down, get a new mortgage at the cheaper rate, and if it keeps going down, get another new mortgage, lock it in, and then when rates go up, you're golden.
Yeah.
You've
that's-
locked in your rate for
the
30
beauty-
years.
That's the beauty thing about America is that's the other thing too. That's why it's a little bit harder to get more supply because they're not like Canada where people have, you know, their mortgage might have already expired in the next year or two. It's going to go from a 1.9 to a potentially 6 unless rates keep coming down. So it's a different game here.
So you started in Niagara. You've since expanded to Kawartha, and then what's the area? Is it Simcoe that we call it? What do we call the?
Yeah, you can call it the
west side?
Simcoe-ish area. Yeah.
Yeah. So Simcoe, like Port Dover, that type of area. That's Lake Erie, is it?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Lake Erie. Because it's confusing because there's 2 Simcoes in Ontario. Because there's the one up north as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
So,
Lake
I was just
Simcoe and-
confused.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the one that's west, Port Dover, where for Friday the
Correct,
13th.
yeah.
Actually, you probably do surge pricing for Friday the 13th, don't you?
Should.
All the Harley Davidson rides.
Yeah.
Actually, no, all the motorcyclists. And you've expanded to the States as well. What markets are you in the States?
Right now, just Ellicottville. So we recently expanded our management company there. Like we have a territory manager there that's feet on the ground. We don't like to expand anywhere until we have a physical person there that knows the market. Well, I mean, we know the market really well. We know the area. We go there often. But again, to be able to be flexible and visit a client at the property, we need someone that's physically there just to keep the relationship. Right. And we like to take the more boutique model of having that relationship with the investor, because at the end of the day, we have avatars for our clients too, and it is the investor focused person that trusts us, that do this full time and looks at data and trends to extract as much return for them as possible. And we just want to be able to be pretty flexible for them.
And now you have real-time data. You have your own data, so you know what works and what doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, which gives you a big advantage over, you know, using a paid service like AirBNB.
Yeah. And that's,
and now you know too, like we know how to extract like bad data from AirDNA and being able to see like what numbers are real and which might be a little bit inflated to create like accurate projections basically. But we've had other people say like, come manage my property up in this area and we just really don't want to expand so quickly that our quality slips. So we're very much like, this is our model and we won't move into other areas until our model can be copy and pasted in there and we're all set up before we can start taking on clients for that reason.
I have a general question. What's the difference between like financing insurance in Canada versus the States? Because short-term rentals usually a bit, it's a niche thing.
So from a financing perspective for Ellicottville is probably a little bit different than the States in general, because it's so close to the border and they get a ton of Canadians that purchase over there. They are able to do cross-border banking. So we were with RBC and TD, so they were able to use our Canadian credit, and we were still able to get 80% LTV on both of them.
So sorry, is RBC TD in Canada or is this RBC in the US?
Because they have branches in the States as well, so they were able to do like a cross-border, pull our Canadian credit. Obviously, like they'd have to look at all our finances to make sure everything was good with the conversion, so on and so forth. It was a much longer process, I will say.
But isn't escrow way longer in the States too anyways?
It's way
Isn't
longer.
like 30 days for financing conditions?
Yeah.
Oh, we thought we were going to be like charged and we're going to lose our down payment. Like are you sure that we're able to go past the date? And they're like, oh yeah, it's fine.
As long as you're showing like good faith interest, that you're showing that you're trying to get financing, they're good. It's like, but here, you know, if you don't make the deadline with financing, it's, you know, there's penalties.
Different
involved.
markets.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Again, that was another thing that we were like super nervous for, because here in Canada we're so used to having having all your ducks in a row before that, condition day. But there, it's like everything took quite a long time, and we kept extending, thinking like, why is this so difficult? But it all worked out, and it's just different there.
Interesting. Yeah, I think you guys are the first to tell me that you could get it done with TD RBC, because typically they only do your principal. But yeah, because this is a border town, it's different.
Yeah.
It would be different if you were going in Florida and stuff. Because we were a couple years ago looking at purchasing in Florida. It didn't end up working out. But yeah, for that reason, they needed us. And if you don't have like your ITIN and stuff, it wasn't favorable.
And it was only 70 or 65% LTV when we were looking at the time. So it was a lot more capital up front.
I think it was 70% LTV, but then also like a $10,000.
They wanted
something like
an
that,
extra percent or something like that. It didn't make sense.
Was this RBC or TD, or is this someone?
This was just
US
a U.S. bank broker that it was. Yeah, I don't even remember which company it was, but it was one of the mortgage companies.
And then insurance, is it easier in the States versus here?
Yeah, I would say it's somewhat similar. Like, you obviously have to declare what you're using it for, and it will raise the prices significantly, but at the end of the day, like, you want all your liability, that kind of stuff. Like, we like at least $2 million of that. And it's fairly straightforward. Like, obviously there you might want to look at more of a corporate structure to protect yourself, just because there's a lot more risk of liability in the States with litigation versus Canada. So there are some things that you can do, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but we definitely use one to set it up that way, where you are protected in case something were to happen at the property. But
I think in terms of commercial insurance for the property, the price points are very similar that we've seen in the States and in Canada. Like, you're looking at a couple $100 a month for sure, anywhere between $200 and $300 for commercial insurance.
It's not bad considering how much money you're bringing in.
Right. But it's more compared to normal house insurance.
But again, this is a business. It's different.
Yeah.
Yes.
And exactly. And again, we know people that don't tell their insurance companies. Again, we don't manage these, but they're just saying it's their house insurance to keep their costs down. But if something were to happen and they find out there's renters in there, it's not going to be pretty.
So who gets the insurance? The client, or your property management company has the insurance, or both?
So our clients get their own house insurance because it's their house. We require them to have commercial insurance, and we require them to send us their policy.
Interesting.
Of course, on our end, we are also covered in terms of insurance. We have all the insurance. We are so insured.
Right. That's crazy, because I've heard a lot of people say just get regular insurance, and they said, and their property manager said, "Oh, you don't need anything different. Ours will cover you." I'm like,
that's incorrect.
I don't know if your insurer will be happy with that.
No, and that's incorrect information.
Unless they have a policy where it says they can take on the insurance for these properties, but the more they take on, obviously, is going to change. I would assume change their policy. There's more risk.
Yeah.
And for us too, like, we just want to make sure that they're properly insured, just in case if someone wants to sue the property owner and they're not getting what they want, they don't try and turn around and come after us as property managers.
So I want to prepare the listener for it, because naturally people will reach out and be interested. What kind of properties are you looking for, and what don't you look for? So, for example, I have some friends who do this as well, and they were getting a lot of new construction inquiries. we just bought a townhouse in like Port Colborne or something like that. It's empty. I don't want to furnish it. Can you manage it?
Yeah. So we actually run like free reports for everyone. We have a team that will do that, so they'll see like basic income projections.
Oh, okay.
We'll entertain more the top end ones, or the ones that may show that it's only say like 50 or 60,000 gross that it might bring in, but we see it has potential because we know the area and we know the layout of the house. It also depends on the person, because there are some investors who are like, I will do whatever you say I need to do to get to the higher income level. And we will work with them to do that, because you can change that income projection based on the amenities, how your house looks, all that. And there's others that are willing to do absolutely nothing. And even if your house is beautiful and they're not willing to put in any money to update things or add amenities, that's just not the avatar in terms of the client that we're looking for, because we can only do so much on our end, but we can't furnish and make it beautiful the way that it needs to be in order to get that top end revenue. Typically, we look at anything that's going to bring in over 80 and up gross to bring in as a management client. depending again on the location, and also we focus more on detached homes. So like semis and stuff, we don't have any in our portfolio right now, and I don't think we would necessarily entertain that.
No, I mean, not to say that it can't work. We know a lot of operators that have multi-unit STRs, and they do a great job at it. It's just not what our expertise is in, and to be honest, we see it as it opens up a whole lot of can of worms when you're dealing with multiple different guests in one building, and things can clash, and it can really, like, you have one bad guest that could give you 3 terrible reviews right off the bat. So we like to focus on, we'd rather have less properties that are higher yielding and we can make them amazing than have 100 doors and they generate $60 to $100 a night, but you're dealing with 100 different people, and it's harder to manage the experience that way.
About 2 years ago, I think, or about a year and a half ago, we actually made that switch with us and our 2 other partners to focus more on the higher end. And we actually left some of our other lower end clients because when we did a really deep dive in the business, we realized that like 80% of our headaches and the things that were causing us to have to talk all the time and figure things out were coming from the bottom 40% of the ones making us money in terms of revenue. So then we realized that we would rather cut our portfolio down 30% and make more money, because now we're not needing to put as much time and effort into managing that lower amount.
Yeah, so we're very strict on the vetting process of what type of property is, but the real big one is who the person that's purchasing the property, and are they willing to invest to get it up to that, because we turn a lot of people away saying like, hey, you know, it has potential, but you need to do this, this, and this. Are you willing to do it? And if they're not, we'll be the first to tell them, be like, hey, as much as we want your business, we don't feel that we're going to be able to get it to where you're going to be happy, and we don't want any bad blood between us, because like our best interest is their best interest. We want to make sure that it's a successful venture for them. And you know, and sometimes you have to have that tough conversation, being like, look, like, it's not that we're turning it down because the property's bad, it's just we know the market well enough to know that there's going to be a lot more risk if you don't do these things, and it might make sense for you to run it yourself and save on the management side. That way, you know, there's more top line revenue for you, and you can actually potentially turn a return based on the amenities you're going to put in.
I have a lot of questions.
Fire
Shoot.
I had a good one and I forgot it. Well, gee, like an elegant bill property, I think most investors can handle that. Oh, sorry, actually no. My question was, so say a new investor, at what point should they engage you? Like, will you work with someone before they even own the property?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one of our partners kind of deal with all the incoming leads and stuff from clients. They get a revenue projection. They can talk things over. We'll go to the property. It could be that it's under construction, that happens quite a bit, or under renovation. And we'll give like little tips on, hey, this is what I think you should do. They'll say like, hey, I was thinking of this and this, and we'll give them ideas on what they can do in terms of design. We partner with different design companies, so we won't do the design for them, but we'll kind of link them with someone who's good at the short-term rental design portion if they don't want to do that themselves. And stay in contact. We've had that a lot with clients where we've been in contact with them for like a year while they're getting their renovations done and giving them tips here and there and our advice, and then they go live about a year or so later, and at that point is when they would sign a contract.
Yeah, we actually like that, because again, if we can intercept, it's not that like we don't do any of the coordination of renovations and stuff, but we know that in Niagara Lake, for example, if someone's renovating a property, we know the importance of having a really kick-ass outdoor space. Originally, a lot of the times we'll go and talk to them and be like, what are you doing for the outdoor space? And it's something very basic. It's like, hey, we highly suggest you just maybe put a little bit more and do this. Like, make it bigger, make it grander, because if you're going to be doing vacation rentals, that is going to be your biggest return in high season. So it's nice when we get to intercept that, because then you see it come to fruition once it's live and people loving it and booking it, and they're like, oh wow, yeah, like even the reviews will say they loved hanging out there. And that's as much as we can, we like to try to be able to influence those decisions before it goes live, rather than coming to them when they're done saying, hey, would you consider adding this deck or this outdoor space or this gazebo? It's a lot more difficult of a sale then, even though we know what it's going to do for them.
And sometimes it's just like education, because a lot of these people typically haven't done short-term rentals before. They could be flippers or just done like renovations and had long-term tenants. So typically after the renovation, you're done. Whereas with short-term rentals, it's completely different. And you have an entire line item just for after that period, which is hard to swallow after you've spent a lot of money on the renovations, right? And you think you're done. And yes, you do need to put in for those bigger homes. Like I think we spent over $50,000 fully furnishing this thing. So it is a long-term play. So there are people who are like, I was thinking of doing this for a year to try it out. And we're like, don't.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah, because the numbers won't make sense if you only do it for a year, because the first year we're just looking to get our money back from the furnishing of the place. It's the year-over-year profit that you're looking for.
Yeah, because the cost of furniture, like if I handed you an empty house, 3-bedroom vanilla house, like just to furnish the inside, how much am I talking?
Oh, like with supplies and everything, like you're minimum 30, 35.
Yeah,
30.
so
Like
people need to
minimum,
prepare for this.
Minimum, probably more now, to be honest. It's
And
been
say
a while
have-
since we furnished one.
And if I have a blank slate backyard, like what am I looking at?
Over
Yeah.
50, for
Yeah.
sure. Like
if you're
all
putting in all
together.
the amenities and stuff, yeah, like if you're going full
Yeah.
sauna, hot tub, covered outdoor area. We love covered outdoor areas. That way, rain or shine, people can
Interesting.
enjoy.
But you have to be different than your competition.
Yes.
So you're always looking at who is your direct competition, what do they have, and how can I be different? And that's where you're coming up with these experiences. And that's why you're seeing these really fun, cool Airbnbs going viral, because they have like feature walls and like bathtubs with like little balls in them, like just something different than a normal house with a bed and an end table, because that's every house. So if you put yourself in a category with 90% of houses that are there, you're competing with 90% of other houses. But if you put yourself in that 10% category, your competition goes down.
I have to say, like the Airbnbs I see like locally, they don't get as. So I just got back. I was in Japan in November, for example, and they do some neat stuff. They have like a Pokemon theme. We're in Japan, right? Of course.
Yeah.
I don't really see the same level of creativity in Ontario.
Not even close. Like we go to Europe, for example,
Yeah.
and the hospitality is where I notice the biggest difference from like the European vacation rental operators to here. Like here, I'd say the majority of operators are just more like, you're bothering me by being here, like the hosts, you get that vibe, versus there, like they'll meet you, they'll tell you, like they'll literally walk you anywhere you want to go if you want that.
Yeah.
Like they're there to like serve you, and that's why we love traveling so much, because we've stayed in a lot of these places and the properties themselves are beautiful. And we're like, hey, obviously we can't be at every house, but how can we bring that level of hospitality back here and get ahead of the competition, knowing that it's not here? And that has been one of our biggest game changers, being able to put things in place where they're feeling like they're getting like an awesome experience every time, to the point where now we'll get returning customers, whether they stay at the same property or not. They just know they're going to be taken care of staying at one of our portfolio.
We're running out of time, but I haven't even asked the question. Like, what is the service that you provide to your clients as a property manager of short-term rentals?
So we do full service property management for vacation rentals. So that would be creating listings, helping people get onboarded, because we know exactly what needs to be at the property for it to run smoothly, getting all the quotes for like cleaners, maintenance, all of that stuff, setting up like snow removal, grass cutting, and managing that, managing the cleaners, managing all guest bookings, handling any guest issues or complaints, all guest messaging. We do trust accounting, so we bring in 100% of funds, and then we push it out profits monthly to all of our owners, and then they get a really nice looking statement that details everything about that month, and it's easy for them, like come tax time, to just kind of compile them all and use them and give them to their accountant.
Revenue management.
That's a big listing optimization.
Yeah, the marketing and revenue management side is kind of one like that gets like underlooked. Like obviously cleaning is probably your biggest hurdle in running the business, just because there's so many different, it's a dynamic model. There's potentially 3 different groups checking in 1 week, and you have to get the cleaners there between 11 and 4, and like you need to make sure that they're doing a really good job, because again, if someone walks in like that's really where I see a lot of owners focus their attention on. But what they don't really realize is like, if you're not well versed in revenue management and marketing and being able to capture higher end bookings, like that's where I think really a good property management company will pay for itself, is being able to see those trends and getting ahead of it, versus the busy host that doesn't really have time to to really dive into it or doesn't really have a passion for it, they'll leave a lot of money on the table. And when someone asks me like, hey, like, why should we pay you 20%? It's like, well, if you do all these things and put these amenities in, I know unless you have time to dive in and put a really robust pricing strategy in place, it doesn't even have to be robust, but look at it, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table, and we'll pay for ourselves right there alone, let alone the headaches that we'll take off your plate.
So you guys consume all the headaches?
Yeah,
we do.
It's a very active business. It is hospitality, not real estate, and I think that's what a lot of people miss. Like, you don't get into short-term rentals because you're into real estate. You get into it because it's hospitality, and hospitality is 24/7. So you also need to be 24/7.
And that's the thing with the management model. It's not just guests that you have to deal with too. There are clients that need a lot more attention than other ones. There are ones that are very hands-off, and there are ones that are micro managers. We can be completely honest there, which sometimes is a good thing. Like, they'll do whatever it takes to make their property good, but a lot of the times they can hurt themselves. If they're looking at pricing, for example, it's the biggest one that I get all the time. And they're like, hey, I want a minimum of this or a minimum of this. It's tough for me because I have to go and do a pricing webinar every single time and tell them this is why I'm doing these things. And 9.5 times out of 10, if they say I want this, it's going to hurt them, right? And it's hard for me to just be blunt on that, but it's like, the best ones are the ones that just give us full trust, full control. It is something that does take time to get momentum to, especially a new listing, but the ones that let us do that, they see the biggest results for sure.
There's always this segment of the population who will make decisions without data.
We've had those clients.
I have this hunch.
Yeah.
Or very limited data. Yeah.
Yes. Because again, you have living data. Like, you have your own data.
Yep, market data, our own, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And people get attached to their homes, right? And they're like, this home is way better than all the other homes. And we're trying to you have to bring them into reality a little bit and say, like, if you did X, Y, and Z, then maybe. But however, it's actually pacing below all these other ones. So we can't price it higher.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, my properties are assets. They're like stocks. I'm completely unemotional to them.
You are our ideal client.
Yeah. Like, I coldly sold my kids' houses already. So, like, they're just things.
So the properties that do the best in our portfolio, the clients, the majority, like, they look at what it's bringing in, and then if for whatever reason things are down, they'll be like, what can we do to get it up? And those are great, because I will all day spend as much time as I can to go in and, we do it in the back end, but they'll have zero hesitation in, say, adding X amenity in there, no problem, as long as they see the return. And I always like to reward people. Hot tub's a big one, where I'll show them the difference between comparable properties without hot tubs and comparable properties with them, and there's a huge revenue jump every single time. And then when they get the hot tub, I like to show month over month differences versus previous year, to be like, here's what your investment just did. I mean, I'd like to say there is me on the revenue management side that raised the price, but the reason why I was able to do that is because you invested in that item, right? And then from there, whatever you want, we'll do it, right? That's kind of what we need to get to, and we're trying to get to as much as possible.
I love the idea. I don't know if I want to get into them. What is into the hot tub? I mean, what is the cleaning procedure of a hot tub?
So that is, honestly, when we first started, we had 0 hot tubs because it just seemed like a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then I got one personally for myself, and I'm like, okay, there is some work on it, but obviously there's a lot of sanitizing and cleaning that happens in between them. Now, obviously, we try to do a lot of back-end things while the guests are there. Like, we'll put out little shot containers saying, like, after each use, put this in, because again, sometimes you only have a 5 or 6 hour window between check-in time, and if that hot tub is disgusting, there's only so much you can do to clean a hot tub before you have to just say, cut your losses. Chemicals aren't going to bring this back to light. You might have to drain it and refill it. Yeah. Now, we have procedures to do that pretty quickly, like using those bigger pumps, so you can get the water out in 5 minutes, and then filling it's about an hour. So you can get it change the water in about an hour and a half. We've got it down to about an hour and a half. But the problem is it takes 7 to 10 hours to reheat. So assuming that gets done right away at 11 o'clock, your water's in at 12, it's not going to be ready till about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. It's not ideal for the guest that's checking in, especially in the wintertime where it's dark at 6 and they're ready to go in the hot tub right away. So that is the biggest headache of trying to do that. But our maintenance and cleaning staff are really trained proficiently on how to treat the hot tub. And, I've kind of become the go-to questions if there's anything weird there, just because we've seen almost everything now, but we've got like playbooks for them on like, here's what you need to do. And, here's when you need to change the water.
And I hope people stay kind of scared of having hot tubs, because that's why a lot of people stay at our properties, because they all have hot tubs. We're taking the risk, and we're finding a way to make the hot tubs work in a short-term rental, where there's tons of people that are like, I don't want to deal with that headache. We're like, perfect. We're outside of your league. We're not even competing with you anymore.
Hot tubs seem really important. So that friend I mentioned to you guys before we were recording, who had a bad breakup with their partner who was supposed to manage the property. She posted her Airbnb asking for feedback, and I was looking at the reviews. Almost all the negative reviews were related to the hot tub.
Get a better cleaner.
If it's mismanaged, like honestly, it can be your best asset or one of your worst from a review perspective. So like you have to make sure that you have a good system in place to do that, and like to the point where we've had to just tell guests the hot tub's not going to be ready when you get there, and usually that involves a large refund. Instead of us just sending money back, though, we like to think of like a hospitality approach, being like, what are you coming down here for besides hanging out at this area? Like, are you going in town? Are you going to restaurants? Are you going to the movies or this festival? And then we'll try to just pay for those experiences instead of saying, here's $500, right? Like, we'll try to set something up like a private wine tour or tasting, just where they're seeing that like, hey, you're not just throwing money at this issue, that you're actually trying to make their experience a lot better, but it's really costing me the same amount and doing a little bit more effort to just get them going like, wow, these people really care.
Yeah, because people generally, they're paying, if you're paying for your place, they generally want an experience. It's not about the money.
Yeah, and a lot of the times they are there for the hot tub. Like the amount of people that search for, like, there's ways to kind of see what, like in specific areas, like what the popular searches are, and like Ellicottville, the number one thing's hot tub. Ski town, right? So
wait,
there are people that are...
So you have a data-driven decision then?
Yes, and it's actually incredible because it's the number one thing that's searched. So if you don't have it, no one's seeing your listing. And it's a ski town. People are going on the slopes and they're coming back to the hot tub. So like basically, if you don't have a hot tub there, you're shooting yourself in the foot. But we know that if it's not ready, 80% of the time, that's the reason why people chose your place. They probably had that filter on an Airbnb for the hot tub. Right. So we know the importance of it if it's not ready. So instead of just hoping they don't care getting into a dirty hot tub, we'll be like, no, it's not sanitized yet. Here's the issue. We're really sorry. How can we make your experience better?
Amazing. Nice service. Very cool. Okay, we're running out of time, but I did have to ask this question. Mm-hmm. What are some of the unique challenges you face managing short-term rentals?
I don't think people understand that. Like, people think that managing guests sometimes is like the harder issue, but actually it's managing our clients, which takes up quite a bit of time, and that's why we need territory managers, and a large part of their job is being the liaison between the owner and their property. A lot of them are very invested emotionally into their properties and ask a lot of questions. So I think that's like our biggest way to navigate and making sure people understand that we've got it and we're taking care of it. With also being sensitive to them wanting to know a lot about their property. I think that's really unique.
There's just so many moving pieces operationally. Like it's a lot of work, right? You have to ensure that all the properties are going to be ready to go. That at the end of the day, like one of our top core values is 5-star experience. If we can ensure that when the guest gets there and that they're having that 5-star experience, everything's going to flow backwards. There's going to be money for the investor. The property's going to be taken care of. Like, it makes things a lot easier versus when you have that negative review that comes in. Now you're answering to the client. It's like, hey, like, yes, they don't have direct access to their listing, but they can see it publicly, being like, why did that review happen? Now you have to, almost have a debrief on here's the situation. So we always start with like, it's as many systems as you can put in to ensure that guest has an incredible experience. Things will get a lot easier. Otherwise, there's a ton of moving pieces. You have to manage your cleaning team to ensure that they're doing a good job. You have to make sure that you're filling the property with people in there, that there's money coming in. There's maintenance things that come up where you have to finesse quickly in between bookings to ensure that it doesn't affect the guest experience. So there's a lot of moving pieces that I don't even know if our client realizes. Like, some of our favorite clients are people that have tried to run it themselves and then said no, right? Like, it's a lot of work. But once you have it down from a system perspective, it doesn't have to be that complicated. But you do need to put those systems in place.
Over the last 2 years, that has been our main focus, is really systemizing the business so that it operates and flows really, really well. And that's how largely we've been able to be very location independent and not having to be around or in Eastern Standard Time Zone in order for the business to flow, because now we've put in all these systems where either that system is going to take care of the guest or there's going to be like a backup and it's not you. So that is how we've been able to be location independent, but also scale, because you're not so much in it anymore. We're working on it.
Very cool. Okay, so people I'm sure are interested, like how do they, so actually, no, you guys have some information for people to, for research. You have some, you do webinars as well. Did you really do a 3-hour free webinar?
No, I did a 1-hour free webinar, and then we did a pricing revenue management workshop, which was a marathon. It was just over 3 hours, and I mean,
all by yourself. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, Ashley said hi.
Yeah.
She was there moderating the chats and stuff, but no, it was very interactive, right? We had, I think, 9 or 10 people show up to it, and they're all hosts that, the majority of them had multiple properties in their portfolio again, and it was very interactive. Here's the challenges I'm facing. How do you handle this? How do you interpret this data, and how do you take advantage of it? So it wasn't just me talking 3 hours straight. There was a lot of me asking them questions and trying to dissect what they're going through, and seeing if there's ways that they could try out. And we saw really positive responses from it. We had a few of them reach out already saying like, hey, we're able to fill these gaps now because of the strategy that we're implementing, and didn't know you could do that in this type of thing. So it was rewarding. It was a lot of work, but again, this is 6 years of stuff that lives up here trying to get out in 3 hours. Very difficult to do, and there's obviously so much more, and a lot of it's even just trial and error and like A/B testing things. But yeah, we do a lot of that on our social. Ashley is the director of marketing for us, so I'll let her kind of talk about that.
Yeah, very active on Instagram at Spencer and Ashley. Everything that we do, provide, sell, etc. If you want to reach us, that is the best place to be.
Yeah, I'll have links in the show notes. And then what is this free hour webinar? What was that about?
So we've done a couple. Like we did one on, we're big into the points and miles and traveling and luxury travel, first and business class for, next to no money, just by points. But then, so we've done one on that. But we did a free pricing webinar that we put on, which again, that one was an hour.
And the 3-hour workshop advanced pricing that Spencer just did is available for purchase. The links are all in our Instagram. The recording.
Amazing. Oh, gee, I haven't even asked. Like, what are your fees for your clients?
20% gross rents is our management fee.
And I think that's cheap because I know you have high-end competitors charge like 30.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of overhead too to the business, right? So.
Yeah. So get you guys while you're cheap.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Like even with that, that's why we'll look in the beginning to ensure that, hey, with their projections and our fee, and we try to we're investors too, so we try to get as much information if they're willing to share about their property as possible, because it's like we almost would go to them being like, hey, even if we can get you to that median percentile, you still might be at a break even or a slight loss after our fee. Is that okay? Because again, we don't want them resenting us if we're not getting them to the top line revenue, because there's only so many things that we can control. Like we know we're confident in pushing it to that, but yeah, it's we'd rather start the relationship up on the right foot than take someone's business just to take their business and it not work out, right? And them switching things up and have invested all that money.
Speaking of control, can you name again the markets that you operate in?
Sure. So Niagara region, Kawartha Lakes, Norfolk and Haldimand counties.
Well, Hamilton too. I guess it's part of the Niagara region, but yeah,
because it's got a lovely waterfront scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
The GTA.
Believe it or not, the one.
Stony Creek's nice. Parts of Stony Creek.
We have a few in Hamilton that crush it.
Give me the intersection. Where?
It's on Beach Boulevard. We've got.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah.
That's not like Barton.
That's not. No. I understand. I understand that it is different, but it's still But those we have a few there that do amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a highly trafficked area.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. It's got a nice pathway. You got the water right at the back, and the houses themselves are very nice.
Very big.
Yeah, you get that really nice restaurant bar with the beach volleyball. Yeah.
Very popular.
Nice restaurant.
Walking distance for. I think we have 4 on Beach Boulevard that they all do quite well.
All right, you might have some more competition.
We're in BC. We're in BC too. You can still operate in BC.
It's a big place. We're in BC.
So we're mainland and the islands. So like
still a big place.
Yeah, like Vancouver, Burnaby, Nanaimo, Squamish, those areas.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got good feet on the ground out there now.
Not Whistler.
We will cover Whistler. Yeah, we will. We don't have any in Whistler right now, but we will cover Whistler.
And fun fact, Whistler, because it's such a high tourist area, is exempt from all of those harsh BC laws that came down on short-term rentals. So it's actually a good place if you're going to invest and you can actually get a place, which I think would be difficult, would be a good place to look.
I have a feeling this market's as soft as it's going to get. Like, we're recording this early June. We just had our first rate cut, but, rates are still high.
Yeah.
And, just judging by, like, what I hear about like, Niagara region market and, like, Muskoka, like, things are still quite soft. There's a lot of inventory to get through. So maybe Whistler's not great, but it's not gonna, it can only improve from here, I imagine, with rates going down.
Definitely.
Right.
And Ellicottville. Did we mention Ellicottville? Yeah, we're there now.
And most people probably know Ellicottville from, what's the name of the ski resort? The public one?
Holiday
Valley.
Yeah. They got a golf course there too, which is nice.
Yeah, I need to talk to you about Holiday Valley because we'll probably be there in the winter.
Okay. Let's do it.
Amazing. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
And I always like to give my guests the final word because I've been guiding this. Sometimes I feel like guide the conversation too much. What would you say to new investors?
What would you say to new investors?
Maybe not necessarily brand new, but like maybe new to short-term rental. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, whether you're in it or not, like, we're big action takers. So like, obviously now more so than ever of like doing your research and planting the seed in a proper area. Like, if you haven't had a property and you're looking to get into it, make sure the regulations are in your favor, because that's probably the biggest talk right now. That's why we love pro tourism. And then after that, it's just, you can aim as long as you want, but until you actually fire, it's tough to see results. So we've been big on like, okay, get a good knowledge base, feel confident, but then you got to make that decision to just go for it sometimes and take action.
And knowing your why too, that's really important to us. Like, we're very much guided by the same thing, where we want time freedom, we want to be able to enjoy our life, we want location freedom, and real estate's really opened the door for us, and so we went all in. But I find some people just try to get in because they think that's how they're going to get rich fast, and it's not the right why. Like, you really have to say, like, what is it that I'm going to do all this work for? Like, what is the final result that I want?
Yeah, 'cause it's not always pretty. There's ups and then there's downs.
Because you have to love it when it sucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're passionate about it. That's why I feel like it does well, because we're passionate about it. So if you're just doing it to like, this cash flow sounds good, and you're not actually passionate about it, it's going to come across that way.
Right. But they don't have to be passionate about it if they're just your passive investor client.
We'll be passionate about it. They need to be passionate about the results.
We'll be passionate about it for you.
Yeah.
Again, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. That link's also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.